This video is sponsored by my amazing website, crochetgold.store. I have some great products crafted with care. Thank you for your continued support. Now, before we start, let me be clear. Everything that I'm sharing here today are my threaded thoughts and opinions based on what I've seen, experienced, and researched. If you see the same things or you see them differently, I respect that. Drop your perspective in the comments because that's how we grow together. Also, when I'm talking about specific people or situations, everything is alleged unless proven otherwise. Other than that, I'm just here to spark conversation, not to claim that I have all the answers or know these figures personally. Anywho, now that that is clear, let's get into the specific topic. I want to talk about Reese Witherspoon really quickly because I am just disgusted. People will literally take money for anything, and it's like, well, if they're not suffering the repercussions of it like right now, it like doesn't matter. So like, I mean, the check is gonna cash like right now. Like, I mean, don't you understand? It's really airheaded and stupid to me. And I'm gonna make the only argument that should matter in this Reese Witherspoon case, especially. Now, mind you, you can't get at Reese Witherspoon by saying like, hey, Reese, this is terrible for the earth. You know, this is a horrible environment for the communities that these AI data centers are put in. Don't you understand? You can't get for that argument because obviously she lives in the fucking community who won't be touched by this until like the whole globe is touched by it. And then it's like, well, we're all suffering, guys. Like, don't make it worse by making me feel bad because I took money and encouraged the use of this harmful thing. We're all struggling right now, and at this time where we're all struggling, we need unity. Like, we need unity right now. Do not be divisive. Bitch, shut up, okay? And you can't even make that excuse, right? So let's leave it from that. Let's talk about how, if right now, which mind you, the industry years ago, like after COVID, the industry, which mind you was mostly at the time because AI isn't good enough to fool anybody into doing a feature film of, seeing actual actors and stuff on the screen. But they were, producing a lot of sloppy ass AI slop, ridiculous, movies and things like that with the scripts and just having actors, push shit out, So, but let's go and say, well, if the tech bros and the media conglomerate folks all got together and they said, hey, well, everyone in Hollywood right now has the Ozempic face. They have the plastic surgery face, and they're really just not able to emote at all. And it's, just weak. And we think that, AI actors would be the better way to go. Then guess who would be making a big fuss, would be on the front lines, would be talking about this here, there, and every damn where? I'm sure it's Reese Witherspoon and other people like Reese Witherspoon who want to have the careers that they should have because this is our jobs done by humans. And mind you, I feel like these are the last little scraps of AI, the tech bros not really wanting that burst to happen, you know what I mean, not really wanting those that bubble to pop, which I'm really going to just sit back and I'm going to do what Mother Nature is going to do when the fucking pop happens and there's no stinking pollution clogging up neighborhoods and fucking up the trees and stuff and the water. I'm going to do what she's going to do and just exhale, just take a deep sigh and, rejuvenate all of this, because by this happening, like a celebrity who, mind you, I feel like this is alleged, but I definitely think that this was an ad. And you might say, an ad for what company? She didn't mention any specific company. No, that's really not the way I perceive this ad to have worked. This is more of an ad like, well, you're bought and paid for by us. And if you ever want a job in Hollywood again, and how connected people are. And like I said, these conglomerates get together. So it's not just, oh, like I said, the tech bros are getting with the, movie bros. You might not want to call them that, but the movie industry in Hollywood aren't the only fucking people who can make movies. So obviously they're the conglomerate size, the conglomerate of that industry. And, they get together and they scheme and plot and find a way to push the little guy out. And then, they make whoever is still in the industry bend to their will, because who else you going to go to? Who else going to put you in a movie? Who else is going to do that? We've already run all of the little guys out of town, so you better do what we say or else. So I feel like that was them getting together and pushing through her. Mind you, she's not innocent in this, because I'm sure she got some sort of a pay bump, pay gap, another role somewhere, mind you, I said allegedly, right? Didn't I? Okay. So, just pushing for this thing and being actually very disgusting and ridiculous. And mind you, she pushed this whole thing where, oh, I'm just like you. I'm going to book clubs and, look at me. I'm making my morning coffee while I'm talking to you. And aren't we just having like a good little conversation? And then the next thing that you'll see is like, okay, so you remember when I was, telling you about that AI thing and how you should get in on that? Well, some company saw my video and decided that they just wanted to sponsor me. So, now we got these little classes where everyone can get AI. And she talked about how, 70% out of the book group, 7 women out of the, 10 women who were in the book group, which, mind you, that sounds fucking made up and ridiculous right there. That sounds like a stat that, if you ever seen like, this is a dig at, people, but whatever. If you've ever seen like YouTube sponsors, they will give you a script and tell you a way to like work it in there. So you have to do it in a way that, seems realistic for you. And for whatever reason, Reese Witherspoon thought it was, more of a, realistic thing that we would think, she's someone who reads anything other than a script and, has a book club. Like, who the fuck is it? I want to see the participants of this book club now, right now. I want the real women who were at this real book fucking club to come out and say, you don't even have to say I was the one who said I'd use it. Don't even say that. Just say that you were there at the book club. Can you do it? Okay. That's what I thought. Anyway, the fact that, she's coming out and celebrity, like the status of celebrity, is coming out and, trying to get people on board with using it and saying, oh, well, if you don't use it, then, it's going to speed up past you and you better do it because, please. Okay. AI is not the same as the buggy and car. Okay, you're not going to like try to make false equivalencies to, especially because what AI is cultivating, what AI is pushing is the degeneration of your mind, which is a muscle and a tissue. So if someone like, imagine if this was, in the Wall-E situation, right, where an influencer came out and was talking to perfectly capable human beings, not anyone who has any sort of differently abled body, talking to perfectly abled human beings and telling them, look at these new chairs, you guys, these chairs, they walk for you and they reach for things for you and they do this and that and all of these different things. And it's like, well, no, why would any already functioning human being want something to do what it's already doing? And you may say, well, maybe just because they're lazy, maybe because they want to flaunt their wealth, and the fact that they do have this share means that all of you normies who are walking around blah 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 blah. The fact is that by doing that, you are going to, in the long run, degenerate your own walking muscles, because an object at rest wants to stay at rest. So it'll be easier to keep you in that chair, say, even when you can't afford it and need to get out of that chair. And when you go to do that, it's going to be like, well, your muscles haven't done what you're trying to make it do in however long you've been in this chair. So now you're in a fucked up position, which is what I feel AI and, all of these companies are trying to do with your mind. basically they're trying to weaken your brain muscle. And when you are at the point where you can't think for yourself, when you are at the point where you are, just incapacitated and unable to basically form a fucking sentence, a creative idea without their help, that is a moment that they're going to start charging out the ass for this stuff, because they know that you have gained a like you have relied on this for so long. You have made it your end all be all. You have, went to it and not even just use it to catch things and mistakes that you may not have, got yourself, or, maybe even punching up your work, like trying to get it to, be better in some way. When you've outsourced your thinking for AI, honestly, if you look at the stuff that AI produces, it just says the same thing over and over again. And you could say that about humans, but a human with so many different ways, like I just did a video on, predators and things like that. And because I am such a well-rounded human being, I was able to look at it from, George Lopez, which is like a Latinx perspective. He's Mexican, but his wife is Cuban, so Latinx, let's just say, perspective, and also the hip hop black perspective, because I'm black, and with African Bambaataa, and the white perspective also with Haley Beck, which is who basically the video is about. But the the main point of the video is that this is a cultural disgusting thing that happens, and we need to address it in the correct ways. And I wanted to bring that up. I don't know why, but that just shows the beauty in a human, where we're able to make these quick connections, and we're not given one assignment, right? And then using that, because whatever you prompt the AI on is not going to take in all of the possibilities of everything and all of the experiences that it has had, because it has had none, right? So it's only going to, in order to give you what you desire, it's only going to pick from a certain niche of things, a certain niche of works. And if you mention a specific person, it's going to go into that mode. I mention that because, like I said, when you even look at AI, and if they start to bring out some AI actors, which I do believe that it'll burst way before then, but if they do bring out the AI movie actors or whatever, you would obviously know and will look at it and say, well, I can't really get into obviously as humans, when we see things and, even seeing things like Shrek and all of that, which was actually done by humans and things like that, if I'm not mistaken, which I'm not, but, it was more done by humans, and humans, putting in the thoughts and the efforts of, themselves. So, but by the time obviously an AI actor would come out, they would wanted to use an AI script and AI actors, which would completely take the human out of the process, and it would actually, really dissolve the reasoning why you would go see a movie. Now, mind you, movies are already not seeing that much. That's why I do think the whole Reese Witherspoon thing is happening, because the only thing she's been in, lately and recently is Apple TV. And I don't think Apple, really promotes that much of their thing because of the Apple TV, because, they have the ability to, since they're such a large company, and they're just, coming in and trying to take over other industries because they have enough money to do so, which is, conglomerate behavior, right? So because they do have that ability, though, they are using her, someone who, has had less acting jobs. Basically, they're using that influence to try to get you in on board. And even if you're not using it in this way now, when it is evolved into that behavior of using AI actors and AI scripts and, completely taking the human work out of it that made it so fun in the beginning, now you will be complicit in it, because they will say, well, you were just using ChatGPT to do this, that, and the third. How is it different from what we're doing right now? Get it, Reese? Do you get it now? Right? Do you see why you're effectively getting in on the thing that they're ultimately going to use to put you out of a job? And now my real question here, this is the last thing that I'm going to say before I go. My real question here is, what on earth is the end game for the tech bros? Because once you put every human out of a job, why would we be giving you money? Where would the fucking money be coming from? Will you just have like a global, a global, like a pay scale where everybody, according to whatever gets paid for whatever? That's how I believe that chair thing came about in Wall-E anyway. People were completely purposeless and outsourcing all of their brilliance and genius to machines that just didn't need to be created, because people who are able-bodied don't need to be in a floating chair and watching TV all day long. But when you can't create your own creative, ideas and mind movies, it's just best to watch someone else do it. When you can't, extend yourself and, push yourself to your limits and have different capabilities in your body and do all of these exciting things that it is fun to do as a human, like working out and sweating and dancing up a storm for no reason, all of those things that humans are able to do, even though they don't need to do them. It's just easier, I guess, to just outsource them by sitting in a chair that you don't need to be in. And yeah, it's really scary, because like I said, I don't know what they think the end game of this would be, but it's actually dumb. It's the dumbest thing that has ever actually come about in the technological advancement of, things. Like in the world where they said we would have, little bots working on our bodies and, reaching places that doctors just couldn't get to, or, in a world where they said we would have, flying cars and all of that. This is actually what we have, cars that will drive around in circles and circles and circles, and, no actual real thought happening, because AI is going to do the thinking, apparently. I mean, I really don't know what purpose that would have for any human. I mean, if our thinking just went away, what will we become then? Because that's really all that, pushes us from it separates us, let's say, from the rest of the wild kingdom, because we know that they already have a sort of a thinking and communication style, because, whales and things like that, they can send out different waves and shock forms, and birds, how they fly, and they manage to be in such a way. Obviously we see that they have their own communication style, but humans have created our communication style, which allows us to communicate to even people who speak different languages. Like a bird will never be able to communicate with a whale. They don't have that sort of ability, but you as a human have the ability to speak English and speak to someone, or have that translated and have the same message conveyed to someone who is in Spain and has never heard English, or is in China and has never, don't have the ability to, speak that same language. They can still understand your message through things that we create as humans, like, captions and all of things of that nature that you may be using to watch this video right now. So with that being said, keep creating, because I'm sure it's pissing a tech bro off right now. And I'll see you next time. Peace.